What if I told you that you don't lose control with food because you don't have willpower, but because at some level you are afraid of failing or even succeeding? I know it sounds strange, but there is a well-known psychological pattern called self-handicapping that can explain this. There was a study by Stephen Bergles where participants were about to take an intelligence test. Before the test, they had a choice. They could take either a pill that can enhance their performance or another pill that would hurt their performance. And interestingly, some of the participants took the pill that hurt their performance. Why? Because if they fail, they can blame the pill instead of themselves. And we do the same with food too. Because when things start to go well and you are on track to overcome emotional eating or binge eating, and you start to eat freely without restrictions, it can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable sometimes. And you have thoughts like, can I maintain this? What if I fail and people will judge me? So instead of risking the bigger fall, we make up some handicaps, like my whole family overeats, so that's why I overeat, or my whole family is overweight, that's why I can't stop eating, or I have some health issues, thyroid problems, IBS, whatever, and that's why I can't stop eating, or I don't have enough willpower, because what if you fully commit and you still fail at the end? You don't want to risk it, so you just stop after one slip up or a few slip ups, or just when it's too uncomfortable, and you go back to your behaviors that are familiar. And this way you can say that I didn't fail, I just stopped the process because I have this handicap, or because this method didn't work for me. But this is not true. Actually, you are just afraid of failing. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now let's add restrictions and dieting on top of that. There is a classic experiment by Peter Herman and Janet Polivy. In this study, dieter and non-dieter women were asked to taste test ice creams and tell their opinion, rate them. And before the taste test, they either got a milkshake or not. The non-dieter women ate 47% less ice cream if they already had the milkshake before the ice cream, because they became satiated with the milkshake. But the opposite happened with the dieters. They ate 66% more ice cream if they had the milkshake than in the absence of the milkshake, because in their mind they have already blown it. This is what psychologists call the what the hell effect. The moment you break one rule, your mind goes, well, this is already ruined, I might as well continue. I used to do this too. If I ate something small, off plan, like cake or a few biscuits, I would suddenly have this urge to eat all the other things that I usually avoided, because in my mind that day was already ruined, so might as well eat all the food that I was not allowing myself to eat, and promising myself that from tomorrow I will not eat these foods again, and I will exercise more, and I will be really strict with my diet to make up for all this food that I'm going to eat today. This is also called the Last Supper effect. And eating your favorite foods, or just eating more foods than usual after restricting, also feels like a relief, right? So your brain starts to associate eating with relief. And then whenever you are stressed, emotional, or overwhelmed, or sad, or have any other uncomfortable feelings, then you want a relief, and your brain will tell you to eat. And this is how emotional eating is wired in your brain. Now you might not even recognize the emotion anymore, or don't even notice that you have that emotion. You just experience an overwhelming desire to eat something. I know the feeling, and probably you know the feeling too, right? But there is one more layer that most people don't expect. Sometimes it's not the fear of failure, but actually the fear of success. You may think, are you crazy? I would love to stop this stupid overeating. Why would I be afraid of it? But there is always something lurking in your mind or in our minds that makes us feel bad about the success. And most of the time, we are not even aware of these thoughts and beliefs, and they make us self-sabotage. So think about it. What bad thing can happen if you stop overeating, binging, emotional eating? Maybe you can't come up with anything right now, but if I tell you a few examples, you may recognize yourself. You know that if you stop overeating, you will lose weight, and you are afraid that your overweight friends will not accept you anymore because you are different. Or you will not have the excuse anymore that I don't have my dream job or dream relationship because I'm overweight. This could be a fear. Or you may think that if you stop overeating, binging, emotional eating, and you lose weight, then you will lose your protective fat layer and people will notice you. And maybe you attract sexual attention. And this can be a fear if you had some sexual trauma in the past. Or someone told me that she was afraid of success because if she loses weight, maybe her friend's husband will start to fancy her. I didn't make this up, she told me. Or another client of mine told me that if she stops obsessing about food and dieting and restricting, it will turn out that there is nothing left in her life because this is what her days are all about. And if she stops doing it, what's left? And maybe it will turn out that she's not an interesting person because she has no other hobbies. This could be a fear for you too. But all these thoughts are just created by your brain to stop you from change. Because from your brain's perspective, change is dangerous. It wants to keep you safe. And what your brain knows as safe is the things that you do most of the days, right? Because it's proven to be safe. Maybe it's horrible. Maybe you binge every day, but you survived. So it's safe, right? And what if you change and it's going to be worse? So your brain will want you to stop changing because change is dangerous. So it comes up with all these thoughts and beliefs, and you are not even aware of them. And these thoughts and beliefs may stop you from taking action. You may also have an internal happiness thermostat. There is a certain level of happiness or good feelings that you can tolerate. And if you feel better than that, then you self-sabotage. It starts to feel like it's too good to be true. So you go back to your not so good feelings, you overeat or binge. Carl Jung said it that when our life don't have meaning or purpose, we indulge in bad habits just to create some drama and excitement, to have something stimulating and exciting in our lives, even if they have negative consequences. So all the food obsession, trying a new diet every week or every few weeks, and the restricting and binging cycle might be just the thing that creates drama and stimulation in your life. And you don't even notice this, right? So now you see that to change these psychological patterns, you don't need more control or a better diet. What you actually need is learning how to have slip ups without turning them into a full spiral, a full binge, or an overeating session, right? What we need is to embrace failure. We can just think about it as a learning opportunity instead of as a devastating setback, right? It's also important to overcome emotional eating, rewire the brain. So when we have these negative emotions, we turn to other tools instead of eating to feel better. We want to be able to have these feelings without wanting to suppress them, escape from them, or distract ourselves with food from these feelings, right? And instead of following restrictive diets, we want to have a regular, balanced eating pattern that I talked about in this video. So we can stabilize the body, because a balanced body is also more resilient to stress, and then we don't need so much to use food to feel better. And also, when we eat regularly, we can have predictable physical hunger, and then we can more easily distinguish between physical hunger and emotional hunger. And when we have physical hunger, we can eat something that will satiate that hunger. And when we have emotional hunger, we can use some other tools to also satiate that emotional hunger. And for lasting change, we also need to find these disempowering beliefs and thought patterns that I talked about that make you self-sabotage. Because as long as you have a belief, your brain always keeps finding evidence to prove this belief true, and deletes and distorts anything that would question this belief. So you have to find them, acknowledge them, and shift them to more empowering, more helpful thoughts and beliefs. And the problem is that usually we are not aware of these thoughts and beliefs, and we can't really see it for ourselves. But a trained coach can easily help you find these beliefs and shift them too. And for some people, it's also important to increase their happiness thermostat level. Because if you keep being addicted to drama, then you will just create a lot of negative feelings, and then you want to comfort yourself with food. And also, you need to be able to let yourself feel more happiness and joy. As Nathaniel Brandon says, what is required for many of us, paradoxical though it may sound, is the courage to tolerate happiness without self-sabotage. So if you want to see the 6 levels of change that I go through with my clients and students to overcome binge eating and emotional eating, I created a free private podcast series for you. It's called Change Code, and you have the link for it in the description. Because most approaches only address the bottom 2 levels, your environment and behaviors. So you throw out the junk food and fill up your kitchen with healthy food to change your environment and start eating healthier, start to do some sport to change your behavior. Right? But the other 4 layers are actually the driving force behind these lower 2. So if you don't change these 4 levels, you won't be able to stick to these bottom 2 levels either, and you will always self-sabotage. So you can get this for free in the description. And also, you can get details about my coaching programs below. And if you want to know how diet foods like sugar-free and low-fat products can make you overeat, watch this video next. See you soon.